Reddit asks, what grossed you out so much in a relationship that you just left? The SWAT stick I found under her left tit. What a sentence. He was on trial for manslaughter, and I didn't know until he was found guilty. He kept trying to call me from jail. Edit. It was kidnapping and manslaughter. But he was only found guilty of kidnapping. I showered at his place after staying over, and I asked for a towel. He gave me one which had literal skin flakes on. I asked for a clean one. He asked what I meant. He did not realize that you need to wash towels because they just have water on them, so they clean themselves. The thought of someone saying, "What do you mean?" when you ask for a clean towel is cracking me up. To paraphrase Jerry Seinfeld, why should I have to wash my towels? When I get out of the shower, I should be the cleanest thing in my room. What am I gonna do? Wash the shower next? Wash a bar of soap? You got to think here, pal. I went away with my ex and saw his toothbrush for the first time. It had black mold growing on it, and the bristles were so flat the toothbrush had a middle parting. I had a conversation with him about hygiene and told him to get a new toothbrush, but when I stayed at his house 2 weeks later, the cursed toothbrush was still there. So I ended it. Edit, it wasn't charcoal toothpaste. What the fuck? Basic toothbrushes are so cheap, why would anyone keep one long enough to grow mold on it? How long do you have to keep one before it grows mold? Was he using it for other things? I have so many questions now. The mold was growing on the bottom of the toothbrush, as if it had been partially submerged in water for a period of time. And he brought this out on our weekend trip and put it in the little pot in the hotel room. I was horrified. I'm slow to replace toothbrushes, but mold? Holy shit. Gonna be honest, I expected more booger eating and less donkey fucking and chemo shaming in here. Gonna have some stuff to process today. Yikes. My ex would threaten suicide anytime things got tough in our relationship. Grossed me out enough that I just called it a day eventually. Cue the desperate calls hours later from the apparent overdose. She's still alive and kicking somewhere though. He had berated me for something silly and was still angry. When we got home, he wanted sex. I wanted to read. He pressured me. I still said no. He got angry and raised his fist to hit me. I just looked at him. He lowered his fist. I left. I haven't seen him since. It's been a decade. It was 2 separate incidents. But long story short, one night she got super drunk at my sister-in-law's house. After spilling a second glass of red wine on my Seals white carpet, we opted to move her glass further away from the edge of the table. As soon as we left, she screamed, like full-fledged raged, at me for not defending her. The very next time we were together, she got drunk again and accused me of trying to cheat on her. I've never cheated on anyone, and threw her purse at me. I let things calm down and explained to her that I grew up in a house chock full of domestic violence, and that was an absolute line in the sand, and for that reason, I was out. Spoken like a true shark. He convinced me to stay on Skype while I was sleeping, and he'd literally talk to me if I had moved an inch thinking I was waking up. What finally got me to stop was when I caught him saying to me in my sleepy days was that if I was next to me in real life, he'd stick his D in me while I'm sleeping, and put much emphasis into doing so without my consent, because you can't say no, and ride me all night long. I finally got the courage to ghost him after hearing that. Did we date the same guy? I had this same thing in an LDR. If I turned off my computer or shut my laptop, he'd call my cell phone until I turned it back on. If I turned off my cell, he'd call my house phone, where I lived with my parents and brother and his small children. Didn't matter if it was 3 AM, he'd call until someone answered. and tell them to wake me. Rinse and repeat. So I was forced to answer to keep my family out of it. The worst parts were he would intentionally pick fights with me right before I was going to bed and would keep me up for hours, hoping I would confess that I did something wrong in my delirium. I recently came across some screenshots begging him to just leave me alone and let me go to sleep. Happened a good 20 times over the span of 4 hours. Perhaps we did. My ex would do nearly the same thing. He'd contact my brother and friends to make sure I wasn't cheating or doing some other crime. He once emailed my dad, threatening to take me away, all because my dad had asked me to help pay for my cell phone. It got pretty ridiculous. Was that all perchance in West Yorkshire? The fact that there is more than one person doing this kind of shit is horrid. My ex used to say, constantly, that she wanted to be inside my skin. It was her way of saying she desired me, but it was fucking weird and off-putting, so I asked her to stop, and she couldn't understand what was so uncomfortable about what she was saying. Pretty soon after that, I went on a week-long trip, and 3 days into it, she called and told me the whole time I'd been gone, she wanted to cheat on me. Then asked me if she could see other people while I'm gone. I broke up with her pretty much instantaneously. Your ex was a skinwalker. Big dodge. Her breath was so bad I couldn't make out with her. All I could think of was, don't vomit, don't vomit. Edit. First date led me to make out session, but alcohol was involved and either masked the smell or my horniness, plus liquid courage just made me not give it a second thought. Second date, we ate some super spicy curries, and that either dulled my senses enough or again, my horniness. And lots of kissing breaks. Got me through it and we made it to the third base. My horniness prevailed. Third date. Both of us just went right to my place for sex, and her breath was just really unbearable. She went down on me, and I couldn't perform because I was so devastated from her breath that I was just trying not to vomit. She wouldn't let me go down on her, which, looking back on things, probably was a good thing. Too long, don't read. Her bad breath made me nauseous and impotent. My horniness could not overcome it, and that was the last we hung out. This one I went through. I later came to find out after I broke it off that she hadn't been to the dentist in years. She was too afraid. And when she finally mustered the courage to go, she had 3 rotting back teeth that had to be pulled. She would speak and sometimes it smelled like someone had farted in her mouth. That's sad. I had a lot of problems with dental hygiene due to my mental health. Thankfully, nowhere near as bad. I remember in high school something similar happened with the girls I made out with. She had braces and she had recently eaten bread or something like that. As we were making out, I noticed that she had a lot of saliva. It wasn't normal. It was too much. It felt really slimy too, and I was doing my best not to let it too much into my mouth. I didn't want to embarrass her or make her feel bad, so I pretended nothing was wrong. After like 5 seconds, I felt a little bit of food, probably bread, that was still in her braces come into my mouth. It made me gag while we were still kissing. I stopped the whole thing trying to look normal and left. She probably didn't notice anything. As soon as I got home, I brushed my teeth for like 10 minutes straight. Oh god, this made me gag. I was dating a girl when I was younger. She seemed nice, and she had 2 small cats. One weekend I went to visit her and the cats weren't there. I asked her where they were. She told me they had gotten annoying, so she put them in the car and drove it to an abandoned bush area and left them. I faked an emergency at home. We lived about a 2-hour drive apart. Left and broke up with her when I got home. Should have peed on her doormat on the way out to keep the other cats away. This one takes the cake for me. This breaks my heart so badly. Poor babies. Crying if I didn't have sex with him. Needing to be touching me constantly and eventually threatening to kill himself whenever I tried to break up with him. The guy texted and called for about 5 years afterwards. We dated for like 2 months. I dated a girl like this for one summer. The suicide threats started coming in when I tried to call it off and she harassed me from a bunch of unknown numbers for about 6 months afterwards. Pretty scary, actually.